So over, pardon me, over the Christmas period, we saw what, quite frankly, was one of the most, well, I struggle to really describe it, one of the most hilarious, if not bizarre statements ever. That the government had cancelled HS2 and was going to save all this money, and it was going to put all the this unused HS2 money into sort of transport for the north, the northern network, or as you know, as I call them, the northern network suggestions, because that's all they really were. Just, well, we might use money for this, we might use it for this, but we're not committing to it, you know? And then, out of nowhere, released a poster with Northern Network suggestions saying, hey, guess where we're spending all this cancelled HS2 money? London, to fix potholes. Honestly, it should be the absolute death knell of any idea that leveling up was going to happen, or that the Conservatives were at least serious about this idea. And it should be, I think, brought up to every single Conservative who is trying to stand for election that they did this, that they cancelled HS2, that they effectively cancelled the future so that they could fill some potholes in London. Bravo, bravo, guys. Bravo. But it gets even worse. Because as we talked before, HS2 was all about improving the capacity we have on our rails. And the other thing was by many anti-HS2 campaigners saying, look, if we cancel HS2, then we will be able to have lower fares. You don't understand. We'll get lower fares if we cancel HS2. HS2 is only going to drive up the cost of fares. Not only, citing any evidence that that was going to be the case, but now that these plans of HS2 have been cancelled, this means that not only are we now going to face higher fares, but also we are going to have massive rail congestion for decades to come. Because that is the type of colossal mismanagement that has now been taking place at this level. And it's shocking that the cancellation of this has literally proved every single anti-HS2 campaigner completely wrong. So I will take great joy for the next decades to come until we, actually get, HS2 up and running, or whatever it might end up being called. They might rebrand it under something else. But until then, I'm going to take great joy in covering, fare increases or, congestion on rails that could have been solved by building HS2. Because remember, all the anti-HS2 campaigners were saying, we don't need HS2. It's just a pointless vanity project that won't really achieve anything. Meanwhile, of course, now that HS2 has been cancelled, all the things that they said would never happen are shockingly coming to pass. Who'd have thunk? Who'd have thunk that such a thing could have happened? Well, we're going to have a look more into this about where these new HS2 monies, of course, are going and why it's going to cause higher congestion and, of course, higher fare rates. But before we do go getting into that, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and an organization link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And of course, it is the last Pony Club of the year. Not only just the Pony Club, but of course, the Patreon members will also gain access to those videos as well. We are doing the review of the year, so I'm going to probably do it after I've filmed today's videos. So look out for that coming soon-ish. It's probably going to be quite a long video, but as always, thank you very much to everyone who does, like I say, help and support the channel. Even if you do, just click the like and share button. That helps out the channel as well. So let's crack on into this on talking about on The Guardian. with new plans for the HS2 Mini will bring higher fares and congestion for decades. So the new plans to resolve the rail capacity issues created by the cancellation of HS2's northern leg are years away, the Observer has been told, amid the claims that passengers will have to be priced off the railways to tackle congestion. Experts have said that the decision to cancel phase 2 of this project, which took it over to the north of Birmingham, will have knock-on effects for the rest of the century. One of Rishi Sunak's decisions to cancel it was like taking a body and just ripping out the backbone. All you are left with is a wobbly amoeba. And that honestly, that sums it up. We've talked constantly. Go back to as we always say when we're talking about this. Go back to we had the conversation with Gareth Dennis, someone else who I would again. I keep on saying this. I'm really going to get him back on, and sort of talk about not only sort of the cancellation, what it means, but now what this sort of really means for like the future of sort of, the rail network in the UK. But anyway, so it also comes as Rail Network has confirmed to the Observer that since the decision to cancel HS2's second phase, it has begun a huge project to examine how to best avoid major congestions along the West Coast main line. And HS2 has been regarded as a long-term solution for dealing with this pressure on the line. However, industry insiders have said that the completing this review would be years away. A Network Rail spokesman said for over a decade, the long-term strategy for dealing with growth and capacity constraints along the West Coast main line had been the completion of HS2 to Manchester. Now the government has changed course. Our strategic planning team are starting a large package of work at what interventions will now be required in the decades ahead to try and deal with these growth and capacity issues, pulling together the modelling and plans and proposals, which will eventually go to the government to try and seek funding to implement. So everyone was planning for the future that HS2 would bring. And as they said, this was a long-term strategy. This was going to be, 10, maybe like 15, 20 years away. But once you had built it, this would be a massive boon to sort of the UK to sort of have, and how wonderful it would be. We want a perfect example. Look at Spain. Spain has spent the last 20 years building huge, massive high-speed rail networks in Spain. It is now paying off massive dividends to them. Another example, look in Japan at the Shinkansen. Came in over budget, took longer to build than expected, but again, bringing in massive economic benefits. Germany, the same. Everywhere where they have built high-speed rail, it's proven to be not only a massive benefit to the existing rail system, but also to bring big economic benefits. So, there are, of course, serious concerns about this busy corridor between Birmingham and Crewe, with insiders warning that the cancellation of HS2 could see the rationing of services, higher fares, and more traffic jams on the M6 as freight is forced onto the roads. Ministers have suggested that the travel patterns have changed since the pandemic, and reducing the need for the new line. The assertion is also being questioned, however. This was also the fun one. Especially after the pandemic, this was the really fun one. That you don't understand. Travel patterns have now changed, so no one's using the train anymore. But think about it this way, because I don't know about you after the pandemic, but using the train, I felt very, very cautious, and it took me even after I'd stopped sort of wearing my mask in public for some time after. When I got on the train, I still put on my mask, because obviously you are in a train, you're in a very confined environment. So I still see a few number of people wearing masks on the train even now, but I've sort of stopped wearing mine. But when I see someone, I'm like, oh, should I be wearing my mask? That was one of the big things. But now, as we get further away from the pandemic, more and more people are going back to using the trains because there is less fear of the pandemic than there previously was. So this whole idea of, oh, we don't need to use trains anymore because everyone's working from home. We don't need to improve our trains. We don't need HS2. No, we are now seeing passenger numbers going up and up and up and returning to the pre-pandemic level. So this whole idea that, oh, it's fine because everyone's not using the train anymore. Yeah, no, it was never going to work. And as people brought up at the time, saying, look, it's only going to be a temporary bump. You should ignore this argument. It doesn't carry any permanent weight. Yeah, they were proved right. And yet, oh no, you don't understand. Everyone's working from home now. You want a hilarious example? Look at the Green Party and how they really went after HS2 and used that argument incredibly heavily, by the way. Anyway, Andrew McNaughton, the former HS2 technical director, said that the government had created a growth reduction scheme by axing the route, saying that we probably bought 4 years more by having a pandemic, he said. Travel patterns were depressed, but they were back with a vengeance on the East Coast and between loops to London and the North and the Northeast and Edinburgh. There's a decent service, and the number of people traveling is already well back to pre-COVID levels. And on the West Coast, instead of running out of capacity about now, we will be out of capacity by 2030. And it just goes to show you what we've said for a long, long time about this particular Conservative government, that they do not care about long-term strategy, about building things for the future. And the fact that Rishi Sunak cancelled this and put in nothing to replace it. This is only going to cause further trouble. And, we can hope that Labour do bring this back. But to be able to do it, first of all, they've got to bring in power. And of course, even if they don't want to build HS2, I think they're going to be put in a situation where they are going to need to build HS2. So, regardless or not, HS2 will come back in some way, form, or another. So, for 15 years, and bear in mind, that's a long time. For 15 years, the whole strategy of connecting the north and south of England was HS2. Any other plans were all predicted on creating HS2, and the new capacity will either directly or indirectly for over the next 100 years. Like, that's how important HS2 was going to be. It struggled to really try and get this across, that that's how important it was going to be. For over 100 years, if we built HS2, it was going to have a huge improvement for over that period of time. Yet, gone. And I think this is something that Labour MPs, and if you have a Conservative MP, you should be taking them to task over Rishi Sunak cancelling it, because it's not good, the fact that he's cancelled it and replaced it with nothing. But it continues. If there is nothing to replace it, you will need to ration. And what's the rationing on the railway? You will have to price people off. That is how it's always been done, as the only way of managing demand, he added. There is no alternative. All the previous work on the development of HS2 demonstrated it was by far the best solution, unless you were happy to live with the congestion and the rest of the century completely choked off any economic growth. It was the only big intervention that was going to work. Again, why not? And yet, they cancelled it with, as they've said, and we've pointed out here, there was nothing to replace it. So, thanks. Anyway, a Department for Transport spokesperson said, that high-speed rail between London and Euston and Birmingham could nearly double capacity along the most congested part of the West Coast Main Line, with the industry already using the £500 million set aside as part of the Northern network to look into options to upgrade the infrastructure on the line. It's not just good enough to upgrade current infrastructure on the line. The fact that you've got this, again, the current high-speed rail between, London, Euston, and Birmingham, it's not being properly utilized. It should be 12 trains on there. It's only going to be built for about 6 trains, reducing it to what some people have called a shuttle service. So this hasn't helped improve what it could do or what it should be doing. And once again, the capacity, the idea, the ability for this to do some good doesn't really help. Because, again, the idea and the scale of it has been scaled back monumentally. But that's what you get when you get a government that doesn't care about long-term ideas. And instead, Rishi Sunak just goes, well, I took the hard decision to cancel HS2. Yeah, it was the worst decision, I think, and something that Rishi Sunak should, and Starmer should absolutely go after Rishi Sunak for cancelling it, because it was a terrible, terrible idea. But anyway, we'll finish this off. So, of course, this is in addition to try and redirect funding from phase 2 being used to support a raft of transport projects across the country, benefiting more people in more places more quickly. And yet, you've used that money to fill in potholes in London. That is literally what they've done. That is what they advertised as a benefit for cancelling HS2. We can fill in all these potholes in London, which you're gonna have to probably refill again in a couple of years' time. Whereas HS2 would have monumentally improved the transport network and got that mythical thing that Rishi Sunak was always after, growth. Yeah, I'm still to this day so annoyed that HS2 got cancelled. And I think it's something that they should be sort of punished for. Very, very much so. In this. And be questioned about. And I think this is something Labour should also be caring about. But like I say, if it's true that Starmer and co are now preparing for a summer election and being told start preparing your policies, maybe we'll see the revival in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it might not be called HS2. Maybe it gets called something else. But at least, we would finally get it. And of course, it's going to take a long time to build. It's going to take a lot of money. But again, as you've seen, as we told about you, the examples of Spain, Japan, Germany. You've got the EU, the Express being highly annoyed that the EU is going to build this massive transport network now to ensure that all major sort of European cities are going to be connected. And yet, oh no, Britain has been ignored. Well, we're not in the EU anymore now. We need to build our own stuff. And HS2 would have been part of that, building our own stuff. But no, apparently not. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.